diabetes is a malfunction of the pancreas, which lies just below the liver in every human being. And the pancreas is an organ that secretes insulin so that it regulates your sugar and keeps you from being diabetic. Now, when the pancreas is injured or has to overwork for a certain period of time because we take in too much food, too much sugar, then that pancreas starts to fail and it doesn't produce enough insulin. Therefore, the sugar builds up in our body, and that buildup of sugar over time causes heart attacks and strokes and death, early death. The average diabetic who is poorly controlled lives 20 years shorter life expectancy than a person who has control of their pancreas. The pancreas is the organ we're talking about, and that pancreas has to stay healthy. How do we keep a pancreas healthy? 20% of diabetics has a genetic component. Possibly a little more than 20% have a genetic component. And that genetic component causes what we call type 1 diabetes, which is childhood diabetes, which is much more virulent, much more aggressive than the type 2 diabetes, which we'll talk about, which is generally related to lack of exercise and eating the wrong foods or eating too much of any food that causes obesity. So how do we prevent the vast majority of diabetes? We do preventative medicine. Over the years, I practiced preventative medicine since I was at Mount Zion Hospital in San Francisco as a young intern. When the doctors there exposed us to prevention, saying, you can't stay healthy unless you eat right and at least get a good brisk walk daily. These two simple, this very simplistic way of approaching health is ignored by most doctors who don't have time. They're harried now. They aren't making enough money. The average general practitioner makes about what a janitor would make. So he doesn't have time. He has to rush through seeing patients. And because of his lack of time, even though he may know himself the rules for good health, he doesn't take the time with each patient to explain how to stay healthy and how to prevent diabetes. Diabetes is the number one cause of heart disease and premature stroke and heart disease. Next to cigarettes. Cigarettes, obviously. Cigarettes will take 10 to 15 years off of the average person's life. If you're smoking a pack a day, over time, you're at risk for lung cancer and throat cancer and so on. But more importantly, it ruins the arteries to your heart and your brain. So people who are smoking cigarettes and have diabetes are bound to die at 15 to 20 years prematurely with a stroke or heart attack, and it's completely preventable. If we want to talk about health care, Affordable Care Act, it doesn't matter about those insurance policies. What matters is what the doctor is able to tell those patients to keep the patients out of the hospital, to give them a chance to live a good, long life and enjoy their grandchildren, not die before their grandchildren are born. The healthy society is a society that eats right, exercises properly, and prevents the overwhelming number of deaths that occur in this society. It's interesting because when I was in Vietnam as a young surgeon in Quang Tri province, I Corps, Vietnam, South Vietnam during the war, no one in the Vietnamese population had high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, or heart attack. It was very simple. I found out after 6 months that they ate right and they exercised. But more importantly, it was their attitude towards life and health and the frugality of their life. They say if you want to live a long time, you should live poor. Live poor means you eat less, you eat right, and you exercise as if you had a working life. So the Vietnamese had it solved. They worked hard, they walked a lot, they rode bicycles, they ate a lot of fruit and vegetables. I asked one of the Vietnamese doctors once, I said, how much meat, I said, how much meat do you eat per year in a Vietnamese person? He said, equivalent to one chicken. Now, people say, well, how do you get protein? How do you get protein if you don't eat meat? Very simply, most all vegetables are 25% protein. You're required to have 50 grams of protein a day to stay healthy. If you took 3 separate meals of vegetarian foods, it's equivalent to 50 grams of protein. You don't need a beefsteak. You don't need pork. You don't need fried chicken. And you don't need to go to McDonald's and buy those thick burgers with cheese. Cheeseburgers are a leading cause of the plugging up of our arteries, the cheese and the fat. Likewise, fried chicken. It's true that meat can be a part of your diet, but a famous saying was, meat should be the smallest thing on your plate. Meat should be the smallest thing on your plate, not the biggest thing. Every egg you eat with egg yolk is equivalent to smoking 5 cigarettes a day. Think about it. I'm an Iowa farm boy. We lived on meat, milk, and eggs. When I went back to see my classmates, they said, are you Alan Hassan's son? Because after all, I was 75 years old. I said, no, I'm a vegetarian. But it's dangerous to tell anybody in Iowa that you're a vegetarian because they live on the meat population and the egg population. So we have to realize that there are certain cultural norms for people to eat meat. 50% of the male population in my class had died of a stroke or a heart attack. And when I was there, they thought I was the son of a classmate. And I'm not bragging about my health, except I still am able to do marathons. I still do 100 push-ups every evening. And I still don't eat egg yolks or steak and eggs and gravy. All those things that build up cholesterol in your arteries affect, not only do they affect, whatever affects your heart affects your brain. If you want to have a healthy brain until into the 80s and 90s and not have Alzheimer's, the first step, diet and exercise. We can't prevent some of the genetic issues associated with Alzheimer's, but we can forestall any of these changes that can be extremely debilitating over the years. It's what we do in life. And even as the Bible will, if we recite the Bible, it's clear that the spiritual teachings tell us, take care of your mind, soul, and body.